Every evening at 6 o'clock, Maria pushed her cleaning cart through the heavy wooden doors of Riverside Music Conservatory. The building smelled like old wood and expensive perfume, a scent that never quite left her uniform even after washing it 3 times a week. Behind her, carrying a backpack almost as big as herself, walked her 12-year-old daughter Elena. The other cleaning staff had told Maria to leave the girl at home. But what home? Their 1-bedroom apartment in the old part of town was empty and cold until Maria returned at 10 each night. At least here, Elena could do her homework in warm practice rooms while Maria worked. At least here, she was safe. "Go to room 3B, mija," Maria would say, kissing her daughter's forehead. "I'll come get you when I'm done with the main hall." Elena never complained. She would settle into the corner of the small practice room, pull out her math homework and pretend to work on fractions and word problems, but her eyes always drifted to the window that looked into the larger practice studio across the hall. That's where the real students practiced. The ones whose parents paid $30,000 a year for lessons. The ones who arrived in cars that cost more than Maria made in 5 years. The ones who would someday play in concert halls while Elena would probably clean those concert halls just like her mother. Through the glass, Elena watched a girl about her age struggling with a piece by someone named Chopin. The girl's name was Brittany, and she came every Tuesday and Thursday at 6:30. Her teacher, a thin man with gray hair and tiny glasses, kept stopping her. No. The left hand must be softer here. Like a whisper, not a shout. Brittany would start again, her face scrunched up in concentration. But Elena could hear the problem. The rhythm was off just slightly. The notes were right, but they came out stiff, like someone reading words without understanding the story. Elena's fingers moved against her thigh, playing along with the piece. She had heard it so many times now that she knew every note. Her fingers knew where they should go, even though she had never actually played it on a real piano. At home, Elena had a paper keyboard. She had drawn it herself on a long piece of cardboard, carefully measuring each key to match the picture she found in the library books. Every night before bed, she would practice on it, her fingers pressing silent keys, the music playing only in her mind. Her mother thought it was just a child's game, a way to feel close to the music that filled the conservatory halls. Maria didn't know that Elena had taught herself to read music from books she borrowed. Maria didn't know that her daughter had memorized over 50 pieces just from listening through practice room walls. Maria didn't know that Elena dreamed in music, saw colors in chords, and felt emotions in key changes that she couldn't put into words. There was only one real piano Elena ever got to touch. After Maria finished cleaning the director's office, after she mopped the main hall and wiped down all the practice room windows, after she emptied every trash can and turned off most of the lights, she would take Elena to the storage room in the basement. In the corner, covered with a dusty sheet, sat an old upright piano. It was out of tune and one of the keys stuck, but to Elena, it was the most beautiful instrument in the world. 15 minutes, Maria would say, glancing at her watch. "That's all we have before the night security guard comes." Elena's hands would fly to the keys. 15 minutes. 900 seconds. She couldn't waste a single one. She never played the pieces the students upstairs practiced. Those were too complicated, too long. Instead, she played fragments, testing what she had learned from watching and listening. Her fingers would work through scales and simple melodies, teaching themselves the weight of the keys, the feel of the ivory, the way sound emerged from the strings inside. Sometimes she made mistakes. The paper keyboard at home didn't tell her about the pressure needed, the subtle ways you had to shape each note. But slowly, week by week, her fingers learned. Muscle memory built itself from stolen minutes in a basement storage room. "Time's up. Baby," Maria would say gently, and Elena would stop mid-phrase, her hands frozen above the keys. "Just one more minute, Mama, please." But Maria would shake her head. "If they catch us, I lose my job." Then no more music at all. So Elena would step away, cover the piano with its sheet, and follow her mother out into the night. On the bus ride home, she would press her fingers together, replaying what she had practiced, cementing it into memory. The students at Riverside never noticed Elena. To them, she was invisible, just part of the background like the cleaning cart or the wastebaskets. They would rush past her in the hallways, talking about their recitals and competitions, complaining about their teachers, stressing about college auditions. "My dad says if I don't get into Juilliard, he's cutting me off," Elena once heard a boy say to his friend. "At least you'll probably get in," the friend replied. I'm so screwed. My teacher says my technique is sloppy. Elena wanted to tell him that his technique wasn't sloppy. He just tensed his shoulders when he played fast passages. She wanted to tell him that if he relaxed and let his arms carry the weight, his playing would smooth out naturally. But she said nothing. She just hugged her backpack closer and kept walking. One evening in late autumn, Elena arrived at the conservatory with her mother and noticed something different. Posters had been hung in every hallway, printed on thick, expensive paper with gold lettering. Annual Riverside Conservatory Gala, they announced. An evening of excellence, featuring our most talented students. Black tie event. Tickets start at $500. Maria paused to read one of the posters, her lips moving slightly as she worked through the words. Her English had gotten better over the years, but she still read slowly. $500 for a ticket, she whispered. Can you imagine? Elena could imagine. She imagined sitting in one of those red velvet seats in the main concert hall. She imagined wearing a beautiful dress instead of her worn jeans and faded jacket. She imagined listening to music played on the concert grand piano, the one with the perfect tone that was kept locked in the main hall except for special occasions. But mostly, she imagined playing that piano, just once, just to know what it felt like to create music on an instrument that perfect. Come on, mija, Maria said, breaking her thoughts. We have work to do. As they walked toward the cleaning closet, 3 students passed them in the hallway. They were laughing about something, their instrument cases bumping against their legs. One of them, a tall girl with perfectly straight blonde hair, was talking loudly on her phone. The gala is going to be so boring, she said. But Dad's making me play, whatever. At least I get a new dress out of it. Elena watched them disappear around the corner. She wondered what it felt like to be bored by something so magical. She wondered what it felt like to take music for granted. That night in the storage room, Elena played with more passion than usual. Her 15 minutes flew by like 15 seconds. When Maria said time was up, Elena surprised herself by asking a question. Mama, do you think I'm good at this? Maria looked at her daughter's earnest face, at the hope shining in her eyes. She thought about their tiny apartment, their struggles, the bills that never quite got paid on time. She thought about the dreams she had given up when Elena's father left, when reality crushed possibility into dust. But she also thought about the joy on Elena's face when she played. The light that came into her eyes, the way music made her daughter's hard life bearable. Yes, baby, Maria said softly. I think you're very good. She had no idea how good. None of them did. Not yet. The week before the gala, everything at Riverside Conservatory changed. The regular cleaners weren't enough anymore. The director wanted every corner of the building to shine, every window to sparkle, every floor to gleam like a mirror. Maria was asked to work double shifts, and she couldn't say no. She needed the extra money too badly. Elena came with her every day that week, even missing 2 days of school. Maria felt guilty about it, but what choice did she have? The gala was on Saturday night, and the director had made it clear that everything had to be perfect. There will be important people here, he had said in his thick accent. Donors, board members, people with very deep pockets. Everything must be absolutely perfect. So Maria scrubbed and polished until her hands were raw. And Elena helped wherever she could, carrying supplies, holding the ladder steady, wiping down chairs in the concert hall. It was Friday afternoon, the day before the gala, when Elena first saw it up close. The concert grand piano. It had been rolled out onto the stage in the main hall, positioned perfectly under the spotlight. The black surface was so polished that Elena could see her reflection in it from 20 feet away. Don't even think about it, Maria warned, seeing the look on her daughter's face. That piano cost more than we'll make in our entire lives. But Elena couldn't stop staring. It was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. The curves of the wood, the perfect ivory keys, the way it seemed to glow under the stage lights. This wasn't like the old upright in the basement. This was a piano made for concert halls, for professionals, for real musicians. Can I just look at it closer? Elena asked. Maria glanced around. The hall was empty. The students had all gone home for the day. Okay, but don't touch anything. Just look. Elena walked down the aisle between the red velvet seats. Each step echoed in the empty hall. When she reached the stage, she climbed the stairs carefully as if approaching something sacred. Up close, the piano was even more magnificent. She could see her face reflected in the glossy black surface. The keys seemed to call to her, perfectly aligned, perfectly white and black, perfectly waiting. Her fingers twitched. She knew she shouldn't. She knew what her mother had said. But she was so close. Just one key. Just one note. Just to hear what this incredible instrument sounded like. Elena reached out slowly. Her finger hovered over middle C. She pressed down, gentle as a whisper. The note sang out, pure and clear and achingly beautiful. It filled the entire hall, resonating in ways the basement piano never could. The sound wrapped around her like a warm blanket. Well, well, well. What do we have here? Elena's hand jerked back as if the key had burned her. She spun around to find 3 students standing in the aisle staring up at her. Her heart dropped into her stomach. She recognized them immediately. Vanessa, the blonde girl who had complained about the gala being boring. Tyler, a tall boy with perfectly styled hair who always wore expensive sneakers. And Christine, who carried her violin case like it was made of gold. I'm sorry, Elena stammered. I was just what? Vanessa walked closer to the stage, a smile playing on her lips. But it wasn't a kind smile. Just playing the piano? Do you even know how much that instrument costs? I wasn't playing it. I just touched one key. I'm sorry. Tyler pulled out his phone, grinning. Oh, this is going to be good. Hey guys, the cleaning lady's kid thinks she can play piano. I don't think that, Elena said quickly. I was just what? Christine interrupted. Just curious? Just pretending? This isn't a toy, you know. This is a Steinway concert grant. Do you even know what that means? Elena did know. She had read about Steinway pianos in library books. She knew they were handmade. That each one took almost a year to build. That professional pianists traveled with their favorite Steinways to concerts around the world. But she couldn't find her voice to say any of this. Leave her alone. Maria's voice came from the back of the hall. She was walking quickly down the aisle, her cleaning supplies forgotten. Elena, get down from there, now. Wait, Tyler said, holding up his phone. This is too perfect. Let her play something. Come on, give us a show. She doesn't play, Maria said firmly, reaching for her daughter's hand. She was just curious. We're very sorry. It won't happen again. No, really, I want to see this, Vanessa said, climbing onto the stage. You're here every single day watching us practice. You must have picked something up, right? Play us something. Elena felt her cheeks burning. She wanted to disappear, to sink through the floor, to be anywhere but here. The 3 students were all recording now, their phones pointed at her like weapons. Come on, Tyler called out. Don't be shy. Show us what you've got. She can't play, Christine said with fake sympathy. She's probably never even touched a real piano before. Have you? The question hung in the air. Elena's throat felt tight. She had touched a piano every week for 15 precious minutes. But that was her secret, her and her mother's secret. I have, Elena said quietly. Vanessa laughed. Oh, this is getting better. Where? On a toy keyboard at Walmart? That's enough, Maria said, her voice sharp now. Come on, Elena, we have work to finish. But something was happening inside Elena. Something hot and uncomfortable and strong. She was tired of being invisible, tired of being laughed at, tired of pretending that the music living inside her head didn't exist. I can play, she said, louder this time. The 3 students exchanged glances. Tyler's grin got wider. Okay then, prove it. Play something for us. Elena, no, Maria warned. But Elena was already sitting down at the piano bench. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. The 3 students stood in a semicircle around her, phones recording, waiting for her to embarrass herself. Elena looked at the keys. 88 of them, black and white, holding every piece of music ever written. She thought about all the hours watching through practice room windows, all the pieces she had memorized, all the nights practicing on her paper keyboard, her fingers dancing over drawings of keys. She thought about the old upright in the basement, out of tune and forgotten. She thought about her mother working 3 jobs. She thought about their tiny apartment and how music was the only thing that made it feel like home. And then she thought about what she wanted to play. Not something simple, not something safe. If she was going to do this, if she was going to show them who she really was, she needed to play something that would leave no doubt. La Campanella. By Liszt, one of the hardest piano pieces ever written. She had heard it played by a visiting student 2 months ago, just once. She had gone home that night and played it on her paper keyboard. until her mother had begged her to sleep. She had played it in her mind 1,000 times since then. "Well?" Vanessa said impatiently. "We're waiting." Elena placed her hands on the keys. They felt cool and smooth under her fingers. Perfect. She took a deep breath. "Can I play it for my mom?" she asked softly. Maria stood frozen in the aisle, her eyes wide. She gave a tiny nod. Elena closed her eyes. And she began to play. The first notes floated out like bells, delicate and clear. Her fingers found the keys without looking, muscle memory taking over from countless hours of silent practice. The melody began to build, getting faster, more complex. Tyler's grin started to fade. Christine lowered her phone slightly. Vanessa's mouth opened in surprise, because Elena wasn't just playing the notes, she was making the piano sing. Her fingers flew across the keys with impossible speed, executing the difficult leaps and runs that made La Campanella famous. The piece demanded technical perfection, and somehow, impossibly, Elena was delivering it. The sound filled the concert hall, bouncing off the walls, soaring up to the high ceiling. It was beautiful and powerful and perfect. Every note was exactly where it should be, exactly when it should be, exactly how it should sound. Maria's hand covered her mouth. Tears were streaming down her face. She had known her daughter was good, but she hadn't known she was this good. The 3 students stood completely still now, their phones still recording but forgotten. They weren't laughing anymore. They weren't smiling. They were watching something they had never expected to see, something that challenged everything they thought they knew about talent and music and who deserved to play. Elena kept playing, lost in the music now, unaware of her audience. This was what she had dreamed about. This moment, this piano, this chance to show the world what she carried inside her, and she wasn't wasting a single second of it. Elena's fingers danced across the keys like they had been doing this for years. The difficult runs that made professional pianists nervous came out effortlessly. The impossible leaps between octaves that required perfect timing happened as naturally as breathing. Every note of La Campanella rang out pure and clear, filling the concert hall with sound that seemed to come from somewhere beyond the piano itself. She had entered a space where nothing else existed. Not the 3 students watching with their mouths open. Not her mother crying in the aisle. Not the fear that had made her hands shake just moments before. There was only the music, flowing through her like water, like light, like something she had been born to do. The piece built to its climax, the bell-like melody ringing out again and again, faster and faster. Elena's hands were a blur now. Her whole body moved with the music, swaying slightly, feeling every chord in her bones. This was what she had dreamed about every night on her paper keyboard. This was what all those stolen 15-minute sessions in the basement had been leading to. The final notes cascaded down like falling stars. Elena played them perfectly, letting each one ring out before adding the next, building to the last powerful chord. She struck it firmly, confidently, and let it sing out into the hall. Then silence. Complete, absolute silence. Elena opened her eyes. Her hands were still on the keys, trembling now that the music had stopped. Reality came crashing back. She had just played La Campanella in front of people, on the conservatory's concert grand. What had she done? She looked up slowly, almost afraid to see the reactions. Tyler's phone had dropped to his side. Christine's face had gone pale. Vanessa was just staring, her expression completely blank, like her brain had stopped working. Then from the back of the hall came the sound of slow clapping. One person, their hands coming together in a steady rhythm. Elena turned to look. A man was walking down the aisle toward the stage. He was older, maybe 60, with white hair and a neat beard. He wore a dark suit and walked with the kind of confidence that said he belonged here. Elena recognized him immediately. Everyone at Riverside knew who he was. Maestro Vladimir Petrov, the director of the conservatory, the man her mother worked so hard to impress. The man who could fire Maria with one word. Elena's stomach dropped. She slid off the piano bench and stood up, her legs feeling like they might give out. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I shouldn't have touched it. I'm really sorry." But Maestro Petrov wasn't looking angry. He was looking at her the way someone might look at a painting in a museum, with wonder and confusion and something close to disbelief. He climbed onto the stage slowly, still clapping, and when he reached the piano, he stopped. "In 42 years of teaching music," he said quietly, his Russian accent thick with emotion, I have never heard a child play Liszt like that, never. He paused, studying her face. Who is your teacher? Elena didn't know what to say. She glanced at her mother, who had moved closer to the stage, her face terrified. I don't have a teacher. Maestro Petrov frowned. Don't be modest, child. That piece takes years of training. Professional training. Who taught you? No one taught me, Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. I taught myself. That's impossible. I watch, Elena explained, the words coming out in a rush now. Through the practice room windows. I watch the students and their teachers. I listen. And at night I practice on a paper keyboard I made. And sometimes, she looked at her mother, guilt washing over her. Sometimes Mama lets me practice on the old piano in the basement. Just for 15 minutes. After she finishes cleaning. The silence that followed was different this time. It wasn't empty. It was full of something heavy. Something that made everyone in the room hold their breath. Maestro Petrov turned to Maria. This is your daughter? Maria nodded, unable to speak. She was wringing her hands, probably calculating how fast she could pack up their apartment after losing this job. And you let her practice? In the basement? Only for a few minutes, Maria said quickly. Never long. And only on the old piano that nobody uses. I never let her touch anything else. I swear, never. This was the first time. How long has she been doing this? 2 years. Maybe 3. Maestro Petrov looked back at Elena. His eyes had tears in them now. Actual tears. 3 years. You learned to play like this in 3 years? With 15 minutes a day on a broken piano and a paper keyboard? Elena nodded. That's impossible, he said again, but this time it sounded different. Not like an accusation. Like a prayer. He sat down heavily on the piano bench as if his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. He placed his hands on the keys in the same position Elena had just used and played the opening notes of La Campanella. Then he stopped. I cannot play this piece, he said simply. Not anymore. My fingers are too old, too slow. I teach students who have been training since they were 4 years old, who practice 4 hours a day, who have every advantage in the world. And none of them, not one, can play this piece the way you just did. He looked up at her. What is your name? Elena Santos. Elena Santos, he repeated as if tasting the words. How old are you? 12. He shook his head slowly. 12 years old, impossible, completely impossible. But I just heard it with my own ears. A door opened at the back of the hall. More people were coming in now, drawn by the music they had heard echoing through the building. Teachers mostly, and a few students who had stayed late. They stood in the aisles, looking confused about what they had walked into. One of them, a middle-aged woman with red glasses, spoke up. Vladimir, what's going on? We heard Liszt being played. We thought maybe you had brought in a guest performer for the gala rehearsal. Maestro Petrov stood up from the piano bench. Not a guest performer, Patricia. Better than that? Much better. He gestured to Elena. This is Elena Santos. She is 12 years old. She has never had a single formal piano lesson in her life, and she just played La Campanella perfectly. Murmurs rippled through the growing crowd. The woman with red glasses looked skeptical. That's not possible, Vladimir. I know, he said. I know it's not possible, but she did it anyway. Tyler, who had been silent this whole time, suddenly spoke up. I recorded it, he said, holding up his phone. The whole thing. I got it on video. For a moment, Elena felt a flash of panic. A video of her playing, of her doing something she wasn't supposed to do. But then she saw the look on Tyler's face. He wasn't smiling anymore. He looked shaken, like someone who had just witnessed something that changed his understanding of the world. Send it to me, Maestro Petrov said immediately. Right now? Tyler fumbled with his phone, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. What's your email? As the maestro rattled off his email address, Vanessa stepped forward. She looked different too. Smaller somehow, less sure of herself. We were making fun of her, she said quietly. We told her to play as a joke. We thought she would mess up. We thought it would be funny. Christine nodded, her face flushed with shame. We were recording it to laugh at her later. The hall went very quiet. The teachers who had gathered looked at the 3 students with expressions ranging from disappointment to anger. But Maestro Petrov held up his hand. Instead, he said slowly, You recorded the moment you discovered that talent has nothing to do with money or privilege or fancy lessons. You recorded the moment you learned that genius can come from anywhere. He looked at each of them in turn. I hope you remember this feeling. This moment when you were proven completely wrong about someone because you judged them by their circumstances instead of their abilities. Vanessa looked like she might cry. Tyler was staring at his shoes. Christine wrapped her arms around herself, shrinking back. Maria finally found her voice. Please, she said, don't punish them. Elena shouldn't have touched the piano. This is my fault. I should have watched her better. Your fault? Maestro Petrov turned to her, his voice rising. Your fault? You have given the world a gift and you apologize for it? He walked to the edge of the stage and looked down at her. Do you understand what your daughter has? Do you understand what she is? Maria shook her head, tears streaming down her face. She is a prodigy, he said firmly. A true prodigy. The kind of talent I might see once in my lifetime if I am very lucky, and she's been hiding in my building teaching herself for 3 years. He laughed, but it was the kind of laugh that held no humor, only amazement. Under my own roof, this whole time. He turned back to Elena, who stood frozen by the piano, trying to process everything happening around her. Play something else, he said gently. Please. Play anything you know. Elena sat back down at the piano. Her hands found the keys again, and without thinking about it, she began to play Clair de Lune. Debussy's masterpiece flowed out like moonlight, soft and gentle and heartbreakingly beautiful. This time, everyone in the hall stood completely still, listening, understanding, witnessing the moment when a hidden talent was finally, undeniably, brought into the light. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in the small bed she shared with her mother in their tiny apartment, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. After she finished playing Clair de Lune, Maestro Petrov had asked her to play 3 more pieces, then 4 more. Then he had asked her to sight-read something she had never seen before, a complicated piece by Rachmaninoff, and she had stumbled through it, making mistakes but still capturing the essence of the music. Unbelievable, he had kept saying. Absolutely unbelievable. Before they left, he had pressed a business card into Maria's hand. Come to my office Monday morning. 9 o'clock. We need to talk about Elena's future. Now it was Saturday, the day of the gala, and Maria had been called in for an emergency meeting at 8 in the morning. Elena wasn't allowed to come this time. She sat alone in their apartment, her paper keyboard on her lap, too nervous to even pretend to practice. What if they were angry? What if they blamed her mother? What if Maria lost her job because Elena couldn't keep her hands off that piano? The morning dragged on. 9 o'clock came and went. Then 10, then 11. Elena watched the clock on the wall, each minute feeling like an hour. Finally, at almost noon, she heard her mother's key in the lock. Maria walked in slowly, her face unreadable. She set down her purse and sat on the edge of the bed, just staring at her hands. Mama? Elena's voice was small. What happened? Are you fired? Maria looked up and Elena saw that her eyes were red from crying. Her heart sank. No, baby, Maria said softly. I'm not fired. She paused, taking a shaky breath. I'm quitting. What? Why? Because you don't need me to work there anymore. Maria reached into her purse and pulled out a thick envelope. Maestro Petrov called an emergency board meeting this morning. They watched Tyler's video. All of them. The board members, the donors, everyone. Elena's hands started shaking. Are they mad? Mad? Maria laughed, but it was a strange sound, caught between joy and disbelief. Baby, they want to give you a full scholarship, full everything. Lessons with the best teachers. Unlimited practice time. They even want to give us money so I don't have to work 3 jobs anymore. They call it a stipend. Enough that I can just work 1 normal job and still pay our rent and bills. Elena stared at her mother, unable to process the words. What? You're going to study at Riverside, Mija. Really study. Like the other students, starting Monday. But I can't. We can't afford. That's what I said. Maria wiped her eyes. I told them thank you, but we can't accept charity. You know what Maestro Petrov said? He said it's not charity. He said the conservatory exists to find and nurture talent, and they had failed. He said you were right there, under their noses for 3 years, and they never noticed. He said if they ignore you now after knowing what you can do, then the whole place might as well close down. Elena felt dizzy. I don't understand. Maria pulled her daughter close, holding her tight. You're special, Elena, really special. And now everyone knows it. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur. That evening, they went to the conservatory for the gala, but this time they didn't use the service entrance. Maestro Petrov had left 2 tickets for them at the front desk. Real tickets, with their names printed on them. They sat in the back row, Maria in her nicest dress and Elena in the only skirt she owned that didn't have holes in it. Around them sat people in expensive clothes, smelling of perfume and cologne, chatting about music and composers and concerts they had attended in Vienna and Paris and New York. Elena felt out of place, but also something else. For the first time in her life, she felt like maybe she belonged here, not because of money or clothes or connections, but because she understood music in a way that was real and true and couldn't be bought. The gala began. Student after student took the stage, playing pieces they had practiced for months. They were good, very good, but Elena found herself noticing things she had never noticed before. The small hesitations, the places where technique was perfect but feeling was missing, the moments when fingers hit all the right notes but the music didn't quite come alive. During intermission, Maestro Petrov found them in the lobby. "Elena," he said, "I need to ask you something." "Okay. Would you be willing to play tonight? At the end of the program?" Elena's eyes went wide. "What? No, I can't. I'm not ready. I don't have anything prepared." "You've had La Campanella prepared for months, apparently." He smiled gently. "I would consider it an honor if you would share your gift with our guests tonight. But only if you want to. No pressure." Maria squeezed her daughter's hand. "It's up to you, baby." Elena thought about all the times she had imagined this moment, playing on that stage in front of people, making music on that beautiful piano. She had dreamed about it so often that it felt like a fantasy, something that happened to other people but never to girls like her. "What if I mess up?" she whispered. "Then you mess up," Maestro Petrov said simply. "That's part of being a musician." "But I don't think you will." Elena took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll do it." The second half of the gala continued. More students played. More polite applause followed. Then finally Maestro Petrov walked onto the stage. The hall went quiet. "Before we conclude tonight," he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room, "I would like to introduce a very special performer. She is not officially a student at Riverside, not yet. But after tonight, that will change." He paused. 3 days ago, I discovered something that in my 42 years of teaching, I thought was impossible. I discovered a 12-year-old child who taught herself to play piano by watching through practice room windows and practicing on a paper keyboard. Murmurs rippled through the audience. People shifted in their seats, exchanging confused glances. Some of you are thinking this is a nice story, but surely I exaggerate. Perhaps she plays simple songs. Perhaps she has basic skills. Let me be clear, this child plays Liszt, she plays Debussy. She plays Chopin and Rachmaninoff. She plays with technique and feeling that would make many professionals jealous. His voice grew stronger, and tonight she has agreed to play for you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Elena Santos. The applause started before Elena even stood up. She walked down the aisle on shaking legs, very aware that hundreds of eyes were watching her. She climbed the stairs to the stage, crossed to the piano, and sat down on the bench. The hall went completely silent. Elena placed her hands on the keys and closed her eyes. She thought about her mother, working so hard all these years. She thought about the basement piano and the 15 precious minutes each night. She thought about the paper keyboard and the dreams she had dreamed on it. Then she began to play. La Campanella rang out into the hall, and this time it was different. This time she wasn't trying to prove anything to people who were laughing at her. This time she was sharing something beautiful with people who wanted to listen. The notes flowed even more freely than before, each one placed perfectly, the difficult passages executed with confidence and grace. In the audience, people sat forward in their seats. Some of the board members pulled out their phones, not to record but to text their friends. "You won't believe what I'm seeing." Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine sat together near the front, watching the girl they had mocked just yesterday. Tyler's hands were clenched in his lap. Christine was crying quietly. Vanessa sat very still, her face a mixture of emotions too complicated to name. When Elena finished, the silence lasted for exactly 3 seconds. Then the entire hall erupted. People jumped to their feet, applauding so loudly that the sound bounced off the walls and ceiling. Some were crying. Some were laughing in amazement. Some just stood there, shaking their heads in disbelief. Elena stood and bowed, overwhelmed by the response. She looked for her mother and found her in the back row, sobbing openly, her hands pressed to her heart. Maestro Petrov returned to the stage and raised his hands for quiet. It took a full minute for the applause to die down. "What Elena has demonstrated tonight," he said, "is something we sometimes forget in places like this. Talent is not purchased. It cannot be bought with expensive lessons or fancy instruments. It is a gift, and it appears where it will, regardless of circumstance." He looked at Elena. "We are honored that this gift appeared here, even if it took us far too long to notice." He turned back to the audience. "I want to make an announcement. Effective immediately, the Riverside Conservatory will establish the Elena Santos Fund. This fund will seek out talented young people who cannot afford formal training. We will provide scholarships, instruments, and support. Because if one incredible musician has been hiding in our own building, how many more are out there unseen and unheard?" More applause, even louder this time. And to the 3 students who discovered Elena's talent, even if by accident, he gestured to Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine. "You will be in charge of this program. You will help us find these students. You will learn what it means to look beyond the surface, to recognize that worth and talent have nothing to do with wealth or status." The 3 students stood awkwardly as people turned to look at them. They didn't look happy exactly, but they didn't look angry either. They looked changed, like people who had learned something important, even if the lesson had been painful. After the gala ended, people crowded a row. 6 months had passed since that night at the gala, and Elena's life had changed in ways she still couldn't quite believe. She now had her own practice room at Riverside with a beautiful upright piano that was hers to use whenever she wanted. No more 15-minute sessions. No more paper keyboard. She could play for hours if she chose to. But the biggest change wasn't the piano or the fancy practice room. It was the lessons. Maestro Petrov had taken her on as his personal student, something he rarely did anymore. 3 times a week she sat with him in his office, learning not just how to play but how to understand music on a deeper level. "You have natural talent," he had told her on the first day. "Raw, incredible talent. But talent alone is not enough. Now we must refine it, shape it, help it grow, and grow it did." Elena absorbed everything like a sponge. Technique, theory, history, interpretation. Things that took other students months to understand clicked in her mind after a single lesson. It wasn't that she was smarter than everyone else. It was that she had been hungry for this knowledge for so long that now, having access to it, she couldn't get enough. Maria had quit her night job at the conservatory, just like she said she would. The stipend from the scholarship was enough to cover their basic needs, and she found work at a small office during the day, filing papers and answering phones. She was home every evening now when Elena got back from practice. They ate dinner together. They talked about their days. They were actually living like a normal family. The old apartment felt different now, too. Elena had a real keyboard in the corner, a digital piano that Maestro Petrov had arranged for her to borrow. She still kept her paper keyboard, though, folded carefully and stored under her bed. She never wanted to forget where she came from. Things had changed for Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine, too. True to Maestro Petrov's word, they had become the core team running the Elena Santos Fund. At first, they had done it because they had to. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. They had visited community centers in poor neighborhoods, listening to kids play on broken instruments. They had auditioned talented teenagers who had never had a single formal lesson. They had watched as children who reminded them so much of Elena got their first chance to really learn music. Tyler had found a 10-year-old boy in the Bronx who could play jazz piano like he had been born in a nightclub. Vanessa discovered twin sisters who sang in perfect harmony, despite never having voice training. Christine met a young violinist who played with such emotion that she cried listening to him, even though his instrument was held together with tape and glue. The fund had given scholarships to 12 students in 6 months. 12 kids who might never have been noticed otherwise. And Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine had learned what it felt like to be part of something that actually mattered. One afternoon in early spring, Elena was practicing in her room when Maestro Petrov knocked on the door. He looked excited, which was unusual for him. He was normally calm and composed. "I have news," he said, sitting down in the chair across from her piano. "Big news." Elena stopped playing. "What kind of news?" The video of you playing at the gala has been viewed over 5 million times now. You are becoming famous, Elena. People all over the world are talking about the girl who taught herself piano. He paused. I have received a call from Carnegie Hall. They want you to perform there. A full recital. Elena felt her stomach drop. Carnegie Hall? That's impossible. Why is it impossible? You are ready. More than ready. Because people like me don't play at Carnegie Hall, that's for real musicians. Professional musicians? Maestro Petrov leaned forward. And what are you? I'm just a kid who got lucky. No. His voice was firm. You are a musician. A real one. Perhaps one of the finest I have ever taught. The only difference between you and the professionals who play at Carnegie Hall is that they have had more years of training. But in terms of raw ability, in terms of musicality and interpretation, you are already at their level. He stood up. The concert is in 3 months. I think you should do it. Elena looked at her hands, at the fingers that had started this whole journey by pressing down on a paper drawing of piano keys. Could those same hands really play at Carnegie Hall, the most famous concert hall in America? Maybe in the world? Can I think about it? She asked quietly. Of course. Talk to your mother. Take your time. But Elena? He waited until she looked up at him. Don't say no because you think you don't deserve this. You do. You have earned it. That night, Elena told Maria about the offer. They sat on their small couch sharing a bowl of rice and beans, and Elena explained what Maestro Petrov had said. Maria was quiet for a long time. Then she said, Are you scared? Elena nodded. Terrified. Good, that means it matters to you. Maria set down her bowl and took Elena's hands. 3 years ago, you drew a piano on a piece of cardboard because you couldn't have a real one. You practiced on it every single night even though it made no sound. You did that because you loved music so much that even silence was better than nothing. She squeezed Elena's hands. That girl, the one who practiced on a paper piano, she was brave. She didn't let anything stop her from following her dream. Is she still in there? Elena felt tears building in her eyes. Yes. Then I think you know what to do. The next morning, Elena told Maestro Petrov yes, and for the next 3 months she worked harder than she had ever worked in her life. She practiced 6 hours a day. She learned new pieces, refined old ones, memorized everything until she could play it in her sleep. Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine helped in unexpected ways. They organized fundraisers so that people from Elena's neighborhood could afford tickets to the concert. They spread the word on social media. They even helped design the program for the evening. We want to be there, Vanessa said one day when they stopped by Elena's practice room. We want to see you do this. Elena looked at the 3 of them, remembering that day 6 months ago when they had laughed at her. They were different people now. So is she. Thank you, she said simply, and she meant it. The night of the Carnegie Hall concert arrived faster than Elena expected. She stood backstage in a simple black dress that Maria had saved up for months to buy, listening to the crowd file into the famous hall. Through a crack in the curtain, she could see the seats filling up. Thousands of people, all here to listen to her play. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was racing. She felt like she might throw up, nervous. Maestro Petrov appeared beside her, beyond nervous. Good. Use it. Let it fuel your playing, he smiled. Remember, these people are not here because they feel sorry for you. They are not here because you have an interesting backstory. They are here because you are extraordinary. Never forget that. The lights dimmed. The crowd settled. Elena walked onto the stage, her legs somehow carrying her even though they felt like rubber. The spotlight was bright and hot. The Steinway grand piano sat center stage waiting for her. She sat down at the bench, adjusted her position, placed her hands on the keys. The hall was so quiet she could hear her own breathing. And then she began to play. She had chosen to open with the piece that had started everything, La Campanella. The notes rang out clear and perfect, filling Carnegie Hall the same way they had filled the conservatory that first time. But this was different. This wasn't about proving herself anymore. This was about sharing something beautiful with people who wanted to hear it. The concert lasted 90 minutes. Elena played Liszt and Chopin, Debussy and Rachmaninoff. She played pieces that were technically difficult and pieces that were emotionally devastating. And for the final piece, she played something new, something she had composed herself. She had titled it 15 Minutes. And it captured everything about those stolen moments in the basement, the longing, the joy, the fear of being caught. the pure love of music that made all of it worthwhile. It started quietly, almost hesitantly, like fingers on a paper keyboard. Then it built and built, growing more confident, more powerful, until it exploded into a triumphant finale that represented this moment. Here now, playing at Carnegie Hall. When she finished, the silence lasted for 5 full seconds. Then the entire hall erupted into applause. People jumped to their feet, shouting and cheering. The sound was deafening, overwhelming, beautiful. Elena stood and bowed, tears streaming down her face. She found her mother in the 3rd row, sobbing with pride. Next to Maria sat Maestro Petrov, clapping with tears running down his cheeks. Behind them were Vanessa, Tyler, and Christine, all 3 standing and applauding as loudly as anyone. The applause went on and on. Elena bowed again and again. Finally, she held up her hands, asking for quiet. It took a while, but eventually the hall settled enough for her to speak. 6 months ago, she said, her voice amplified by the microphone they had given her. I was invisible. I was the daughter of a cleaning lady, someone people looked through instead of at. I practiced on a piano I drew on cardboard. I stole 15 minutes a night on a broken piano in a basement. I thought that was all I would ever have. She paused, wiping her eyes. But someone gave me a chance. Actually, a lot of people gave me chances. And now I'm here, standing on this stage, living a dream I didn't even know I was allowed to have. She looked out at the audience. If you're out there and you have a dream but you think it's